Hello and welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 25th January 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we will look into various aspects of India-Indonesia relations, particularly in context of recent visit by the President of Indonesia on account of being the chief guest in Republic Day celebrations of 2025. After that, in our second topic, we will look into various dimensions of industrial disasters, what are the possible reasons and some solutions. After that, in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very important for your upcoming prelims 2025 exam. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So, our first topic is India-Indonesia relations. The context of this topic is that the President of Indonesia is the chief guest at Republic Day celebrations of 2025. If you talk about last 5 years, in year 2021 and 22, there was no chief guest in the Republic Day on account of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions that were in place. In year 2023, it was the President of Egypt who was called as the chief guest. In year 2024, it was the President of France, Mr. Emmanuel Macron. And year 2025, it is the President of Indonesia. By calling a head of state as the chief guest in Republic Day celebrations of India, India gives a symbolic gesture, or India wants to portray to the other parts of the world that this particular countries hold utmost significance in India's diplomacy. And with this gesture, India wants to deepen the collaboration and the diplomatic ties with that particular country. Now this topic, India-Indonesia relations, pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, bilateral groupings and agreements, grouping and agreements involving India and or affecting India's interest, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interests. If you look into the background of India-Indonesia relations, the diplomatic ties with both the countries, between both the countries, started in year 1949. And that is the reason in 2024, India and Indonesia relations mark the 75 years of diplomatic ties. Also, both the countries have historic ties. For example, both these countries endured the ravages of the colonialism. For example, Indonesia was the colony of Dutch and it got independence in year 1945. And obviously, you would be knowing that India was also a colony of Britishers and it got independence in year 1947, somewhat near to the independence year of the Indonesia. Also, both India and Indonesia have a common membership in various multilateral organizations. For example, India and Indonesia are part of G20, East Asia Summit, United Nations, Indian Ocean Rim Association, ASEAN, in which the Indonesia is a member and India is a dialogue partner. Also, if you look into the strategic position of Indonesia, in that way also it holds utmost significance. For example, this is Indira Point, which is the southernmost point of India. And this is the 10-degree channel which separates the islands of Andaman and Nicobar. And this is the 6-degree channel which separates the Indira Point from Indonesia. And this is the narrow passage of Strait of Malacca, which is very important, which is very significant for accessing the South Asia as well as the Southeast Asia. So this location of Indonesia is very much important for accessing other parts of South Asia and Southeast Asia. And that is why it is very much important for boosting or for ensuring proper trade between other parts of South Asian countries. Also, if you look into this port, this is Sabang port, which is located in India, and there are discussions going on to develop this port with joint collaboration between India and Indonesia. And if it would be developed, then India's presence will be significantly improved in Indonesia, and which can help us in improving our trade in this region and other parts of South Asia as well as Southeast Asia. Now, if you look into the various relations that India-Indonesia have, the first important is the political relations that I told you that both the countries were earlier the colonies of some of the European countries, and the democracy and pluralism is one of the important factors that is binding the relations between both the countries. If you talk about in terms of the population, India is world's largest democracy, US is second largest democracy, and the Indonesia is the third largest democracy in world. That is one of the important area, that is one of the important factor which is binding the relations between both the countries. The pluralism, respect for all religions, all races, and proper respect for the fundamental rights of all religion, race, caste is another factor which is binding both the countries. The President Sukarno was the first chief guest in the first Republic Day celebrations in year 1950, and again after 75 years you can see the President of Indonesia is the chief guest. That again signifies the importance of Indonesia for India. Also, the Bandung Conference, which happened in 1955, and after which the non-alignment movement was established. What happened? After the Second World War, there were two blocks that were created in the world. One was the US-led bloc, and second was the Russia-led bloc. Now, many of the countries joined either of the bloc, but some of the countries like Yugoslavia, India, Indonesia, Egypt, and Ghana have said that they will not join any of the bloc, and that is where this concept of non-alignment movement came, which originates from the Asian African Conference, also known as Bandung Conference, which was held in Indonesia in 1955, and the movement was actually founded in the first summit happened in Belgrade, Serbia, which is the part of Yugoslavia formerly, in year 1961. And what were the main principles of the non-alignment movement? The first is the respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations. There should not be any undue attack or influence or disturbance in the sovereignty and integrity of any of the nations. There should be recognition of equality among all race and nations. There should not be any consideration that there is a superior race or inferior race, or there is a country which is superior or inferior. All the countries are equal. There should be non-interventions or non-interference into the internal affairs of another country. For example, the left-wing extremism or Kashmir issue is an internal matter of India. There should not be any interference by any other country in this internal matter of India. And these are the principles of the non-aligned movement or the non-alignment movement. Then the Look East and the Act East policy. The Look East policy, which was launched in year 1991 to strengthen the economic ties with the Southeast Asian countries. Then in year 2014, the name was changed from Look East to Act East, and now the focus was on greater economic and strategic cooperation and partnership with the ASEAN nations, with the Southeast Asian regions. So these are some of the relations factors which are influencing the political relations between both the countries. Then we have the cultural and historic ties also. For example, the 2000 years of cultural and commercial interactions, religious exchanges in Hinduism, Buddhism and Islam. For example, there was a person named Gunavarman who was a Kashmiri Buddhist monk. He went to Java, and the king of the Java at that particular point of time has kept himself as the advisor. Then there were various other monks also who were kept as the advisors in Sri Vijaya Empire, which is the part of nowadays Indonesia. That again shows the historic ties, the ties related to the religions, etc., that both the countries are having. Then the adaptations of Indian epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. The Ramayana is still very much famous, and it is often depicted in traditional art forms like the shadow puppetry named Wayang Kilt, which is in Javanese version known as the Kakavin Ramayan. For example, in India, we have shadow puppetry like Ravan Chaya, etc. Similarly, in these kind of shadow puppetry, the Ramayanas, his teachings from the Ramayanas are depicted. That also shows that what is the influence of Indian epics in the Indonesian culture. Also, if you talk about the economic relations, both the countries have a significant bilateral trade amounting to almost $38.85 billion in year 2022-23. But India have a significant trade deficit with the Indonesia on account of various imports to India. For example, coal, minerals, rubber, pulp and paper, hydrocarbon reserves. Palm oil is one such significant component which is imported from Indonesia to India. Then if you talk about exports to Indonesia, the refined petroleum products, maize, commercial vehicles, telecommunication equipment, oil seeds, animal feed, cotton, pharmaceuticals, steel products, plastics are some of the products which are exported to Indonesia. And if you look into the trade figures of the Indonesia, we have a trade deficit if you look into the figures of 2019, and this is the figure which has been provided by the Trade Ministry of the Indonesia, that India have somewhat trade deficit with the Indonesia, means we are importing more from the Indonesia as compared to exports which we are doing. Then if you talk about the investment from year 2000 till 2022, India have almost $1219 million across 4,750 projects. This is the amount of investment that India did. And if you talk about the various companies, the major investment has been done by the Tata Power across various power producing units, across various other electricity grid, transportation, etc. Then the Adani Group, Reliance Group, they have done a significant amount of investment in Indonesia. Then if you talk about the defense cooperation, both the countries have now elevated the relations to the comprehensive strategic partnership which was signed in year 2018, and the joint military exercise between both the countries that is named as the Garuna Shakti. By this elevation that towards the relationship as the comprehensive strategic partnership, it is not only limited to the economic cooperations, rather than various other cooperations in the areas of defense, in the areas of maritime security, etc. is in place, is in focus between both the countries. Also, the first security dialogue happened few years back. Then in year 2022, the India-Indonesia second security dialogue happened between our NSA Ajit Doval and the Interior Affairs Minister of the Indonesia, which again tried to address the various underlying issues between both the countries, that how we can improve the security and the safety cooperations between both the countries, how the maritime trade can be improved, maritime security can be improved between both the countries. Then the 7th India-Indonesia Joint Defense Cooperation Committee meeting held in New Delhi a few months back. That is a one level down from the security dialogue. So India and Indonesia are also having time to time diplomatic discussions going on between both the countries to improve the defense cooperations also. Then if you look into the investment that we have talked about, then if you talk about the challenges in India-Indonesia relationship, the first important challenge is unequal trade dynamics that both countries have. The India have a trade deficit with Indonesia, and one major reason is the major import of palm oil that India is doing. One first major importer of palm oil in India is Indonesia itself, and after that Malaysia is the second country from which India is importing oil. So the first major importer is Indonesia and second is the Malaysia. But if you look into the ties, the China is the biggest trade partner of the Indonesia, and India comes to almost 4th level after US and other Japan. Also, if you look into that, what are the commodities? The substantial import of commodities like palm oil and coal. For example, only palm oil imports in year 2022 was around $11 billion as per the Trade Affairs Ministry of the Indonesia. Means palm oil is significant component between both the countries for having trade. Then the rise of Chinese influence, the economic and the political influence in Indonesia, the investments that Chinese companies are doing under the Belt and Road initiatives in various railways infrastructure, in various port infrastructure improvements. That is also leading to eyebrows in India, because we have seen in various countries when Chinese have done significant investment, it has become somewhat unsustainable for the countries who are getting the investment under the Belt and Road initiatives to pay back that loan, to pay back that interest, with the help of which the investment was done in that country. So tomorrow, if this loan or the investments which are being done by the China in Indonesia, if that loan become unsustainable, again the Chinese presence will increase in Indonesia, and that can create the geopolitical issues or the concerns for India in longer run. The obstacles to defense corporations, the disparities in the defense procurements procedures, that the Indonesia is in need of the imports of the defense equipments, defense components, but the procedure is very difficult. There are a lot of clearances that are needed, and that is the reason that India couldn't export much of the defense components to Indonesia. And this is the one of the major reason which is limiting the deeper military cooperation, and this is one area which is being talked about under the Defense Cooperation Committee meeting and the security dialogue between both the countries, that how we can deepen this defense trade between both the countries. Also, the dysfunctional investor window. For example, in India, in various cases, there is single window clearances which is available. For example, in case of environmental clearances. So similarly, earlier there was a single window clearance for investment from India into Indonesia, but as of now that investor window has become dysfunctional, which is hindering the business expansion in India. The connectivity issues, there are limited air connectivity between Jakarta and India, and also the visa barriers are also, they are not easily got by the most of the people who wants to go to Indonesia. That limit the people to people exchange interactions, and also it impedes the tourisms and the business growth in Indonesia. The investment from India also gets impeded due to this restrictions of connectivity between both the countries. Now, what should be the way forward? What should be done? First is, there is need for boosting trade ties, and for that we need to accelerate the comprehensive economic partnership agreement, which will help in significantly reducing the trade barriers between both the countries, and that will also help in improving the trade between both the countries. Investment can also improve, and after the accelerating the comprehensive economic partnership agreement signing. Also, there is need for tourism diplomacy. The religious, the cultural and historic sites can be promoted for the country, for the peoples of both the countries, and that can actually help in generating revenue in the tourism industry, and that can also deepen the people to people exchange. Also, there is need for enhanced cooperation in various India-led multilateral organizations or multilateral initiatives. For example, International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, the Global Biofuel Alliance. In these kind of initiatives, if the Indonesia take a lead in participation and improves their participation, then both the countries can have a better relations. Also, the multilateral engagement. For example, the Indonesia is a member of ASEAN and India is a dialogue partner. So these kind of forums where both the countries have a presence, this should be utilized well, so that all the concerns which are having both the countries are having, they can be addressed in due time. Similarly, we have the Indian Ocean Rim Association, which can be leveraged for maritime trade and security. Also, there is need for expanding the connectivity, and this can be done by expanding the educational and cultural exchange programs. For example, some of the universities can have a dedicated facilities for the students of the Indonesia, that if someone wants to study in India and who is an Indonesian citizen, they can have a better access with the help of Ministry of External Affairs. With the help of more and more people to people exchange, both the countries can have a significant improvement in the relations. This is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. So there was a question in prelims 2018, and that question was, the quantity of imported edible oil is more than the domestic production of edible oils in the last 5 years. This is one statement which is correct. The government does not impose any custom duty on all the imported edible oil as a special case. This particular option was incorrect. And one of the major reason why this question was asked, because of the surge in the palm oils. And that was the context that because of which this question was asked in year 2018. And when the question is asked on the edible oils, which is also related to palm oil, this particular theme of edible oils becomes very important for your upcoming exams also. If you have prepared that theme very well, you will be rewarded in year 2021 when there is a question. This is the year when question was asked on the palm oil. That palm oil is native to Southeast Asia, which is incorrect. It is native to Africa. So by only knowing about the statement 1, you can get the answer of this question, which is B, 2 and 3 only. And this particular, the second and third statements were very general in nature, that it is raw material for some industries which are producing the lipstick and perfumes. That can be correct. And it can also be used to produce biodiesel. That can be also a correct option. So the correct answer was B, 2 and 3 only. And here the first option was obviously correct, because edible oil imports is one of the important area which India is importing, and the domestic production is very less. And government is obviously imposing the custom duty on the imports of the edible oils, because with the help of custom duties, tomorrow if they want to restrict the import of edible oils or they want to increase it, they can do with the help of increase or decrease in the custom duties. Otherwise, if there will be no custom duty, they will have to resort to some non-tariff barriers which are less resorted to. So the second statement was incorrect and the first statement is correct. One only is the correct answer. Now why I took this question is to show you that if there is a question or if there is a theme which has been asked previously, you need to prepare that theme very thoroughly. There are high chances that you will get a question on that theme in the upcoming years, because syllabus and PYQs are the two things which are given by the UPSC. There is no content which has been recommended by the UPSC. You have to only take the insights from the previous year papers and the syllabus given by the UPSC. So for example, delimitation commission question was asked in year 2024. How many times it has been formed? So it is not your duty to just know the answer, but your task starts from there itself, that okay, it has been formed 4 times, but what are the constitutional provisions related to it? And what is the mandate of the delimitation commission? Who are the members of it? Who appoints the members? All this information you need to know. And if you will prepare this theme properly, in the upcoming years, you will see that there will be one or another question related to the delimitation commission for sure in the prelims examination. So similarly, if you will prepare these themes properly, you will be rewarded. So in this particular question, 1 only is the correct answer and B, 2 and 3 only is the correct answer in this question of the 2021. Our second topic is industrial disasters in India. The context of this particular topic is that a massive explosion ripped through an ordnance factory in Maharashtra's Bhandara district on Friday morning, leaving 8 people dead and 5 injured. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and GS paper 3, infrastructure and disaster management. So what are industrial disasters? These disasters can be defined as the significant accidents which happen at industrial sites and which leads extensive damage or injuries or fatalities. Either this can create damage to the people, which can lead to death of the people, or they can also damage the environment. For example, the pollution of the air, water, etc. And what are the major causes of these industrial disasters? That either the chemical leakages can happen. For example, methyl isocyanate had leaked in the Bhopal gas tragedy, or the styrene gas was leaked in Visakhapatnam gas leak in year 2020, which caused death of more than a dozen persons. Or the mechanical failures can happen, or the civil or electrical processes that some man-made process couldn't done properly, or some accident may be involved due to the natural disasters like rainwater or anything else, or the negligence of the workforce or the incompetence of the workforce, that they were not having a clear idea or they were not trained properly to deal with that machine or that process itself, which can lead to any of the untoward consequences or any kind of hazard or disaster. There are various types of industrial disasters, for example, chemical disasters, explosions, mining disasters, which can happen in various forms. For example, the gas can leak from the mines, or the mine collapse can happen. The falling objects from the industries, that can further leads to loss of the life. The radiological incidents, for example, Chernobyl incident which happened. And as per the National Disaster Management Authority, over 130 significant chemical accidents alone happened in the country in last decade, which took more than 250 lives. If you look into this data from ILO stat, India is one such country which have highest global deaths due to the industrial accidents, and second highest was the Russia, after that Germany. So that shows the abysmal condition of India towards in the relation to industrial disasters, that India is having is one of the such countries which is in which country there is lot of loss of lives due to industrial disasters. So what are the factors which are contributing to industrial disasters? First is the regulatory complexity. For example, in the chemical industry itself, there are 15 acts and 19 rules which are managing the chemical industry, which creates unnecessary confusion, and there are overlapping provisions in some or other acts and the rules, and it becomes really difficult for these industries to comply with these rules and norms that are in place. And that is the reason that you can see that from this data of Andhra Pradesh, that over only 60% of the industrial units in North Andhra Pradesh follow the prescribed safety and maintenance norms, because when there will be so much of rules and laws that will be in place and there is no proper oversight mechanism to look into that, obviously the norms will be flouted. The second important factor is inadequate worker training. As per a study done by IIT Kanpur, that it says that many of the industries lack safety and emergency response training. That what should be the response of the workers in case of any disaster or any emergency. They are not well trained for that. There is no proper capacity building which has been done for these workers. Also, as per the Director General of Factory Advice Services and the Labor Institutes, they said that there is improper scaffolding techniques which are given to the workers. These scaffolding are the instruction which are the practice in which teacher gradually removes the guidance and support as students learn and become more competent by themselves. So until and unless first time there will be a teacher or guidance which will provide these techniques to the workers, they will not be able to understand that what should be their response in case of any emergency. Also, the underinvestment in safety. There are lack of proper ventilation system and the fire safety equipments. As per audit done by the Comptroller and Auditor General, there are various state establishment units who do not have the fire safety compliances. Why? Because this is one such area which the investors or the owners of company try to avoid doing investment. Because in this country, the one thing which is least costly is the lives of the people. And when there is improper fire safety equipments and lack of proper ventilation system, it can lead to loss of lives of the people, and which is happening time and again under the various disasters which has taken place in the countries. Also, there is a movie with the name of Agni which came few months back, and on that movie Agni itself, which is mainly based on the life of the fire safety personals, fire response teams, in that particular movie itself it was shown that most of the industries, most of the high-rise buildings, whatever the fire safety equipments they have, either they are expired or they are non-functional, and that is the reason that it becomes really difficult to mitigate or to give proper response in case of fires. Also, the maintenance neglect, because any machine or any of the disposal sites, whatever that is there, it needs proper maintenance. Until and unless there will be proper maintenance, that can lead to any of the chemical disasters or mechanical disasters, or that can lead to gas leaks. That happened, for example, in the case of styrene gas leak in Visakhapatnam in year 2020, which led to loss of life of more than 10 people. Also, in the Neyveli, unexpected boiler explosion happened, which was not maintained properly, which again led to loss of life of several people. The Bhopal gas tragedy which happened, in year 1984, the methyl isocyanate, which was a poisonous gas which escaped from the Union Carbide plant in Bhopal, which caused havoc in area, and which, as per the official figures, more than 4,000 people lost their lives. And who are the survivors? They suffered with the respiratory problems, eye irritation, or the blind, and there are various genetic diseases also which are happening till date. So what is happening in the Bhopal gas tragedy also? The leak happened because of the non-maintenance of the various equipments or the storage systems that were there in place. Also, the lack of enforcement and the safety regulations. There are various establishments, various industries which are working without permits, and there are improper inspections. As per the Factories Act 1948, the state government should employ the inspectors to look after the various establishment whether they are following proper norms or not. And this Factories Act 1948 has now changed to Occupational Safety Code of 2020. So when, until and unless there will be a proper enforcement mechanism, proper inspection, proper oversight mechanism, it will be very difficult for us to implement all the laws and rules that are in place. Also, if you look into this data from Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, some of the industrialized states like Gujarat and Maharashtra are some of the states where lot of industrial disasters are happening, and that is creating lot of loss of life of the people. Similarly, if you look into some of the major industrial disasters that happened in last few decades, the Bhopal gas tragedy is the most infamous, which happened on December 3, 1984. In Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, the methyl isocyanate gas leaked from Union Carbide plant, and more than 3,000 immediate deaths and 1,000 long-term health issues. The Chasnala mine disasters, which happened in year 1975 in Jharkhand, mine collapse happened due to flooding, and over 375 miners got killed in that particular disaster. Then the Visakhapatnam gas leak, which happened in 2020, as we talked, that styrene gas leak happened from a LG polymers plant, and 12 deaths, 1,000 affected by the respiratory issues. And it is not only the human deaths which are happening, various animal deaths also happened. The Neyveli boiler blast happened in year 2020. Here again several deaths happened. The Sukinda Valley disaster, which is a chromite mining location in Odisha, it led to a lot of environmental degradation due to chromium mining, and it deteriorated the quality of air and water, health impacts on the local communities. So what are the various safeguards against the industrial disasters that are provided in India? What are the various legal safeguards? First is the Environmental Protection Act 1986, which ensures that there are proper safeguards for environment protection. It regulates the hazardous substance, how they should be collected, how they should be processed, and how they should be disposed. Also, it prevents the pollution conducting various companies, that what they need to be located in some of the places which are far away from the human habitations. Also, the environment impact assessments needs to be done even before giving permits or clearances to these kind of industries as per the Environment Protection Act 1986. Then we have the Factories Act 1948, which changed to Occupational Safety Code. Under this, it ensures the safety measures, emergency preparedness plan. It provides for that what in case of any disaster, what should be the response. Also, the worker training should be provided with the help of the government at due level. Also, the Public Liability Insurance Act 1991, which mandates the insurance coverage for industries which are handling the hazardous substances in case of any disasters that may happen, that people involved who might be impacted, they would be given the insurances. Another safeguard is the Disaster Management Act 2005, under which the NDRF, SDRF has been provided, and there has been separate fund which has been established under this particular act, and which provides for the preparedness, response, and the recovery from the industrial disasters. What should be the various mitigation measures that should take place at that point of time. Then we have the Hazardous Waste Management, Handling and Transboundary Movement Rules 1989, which gives us this duty for the particular industry itself to identify the significant accident risks. They need to implement the preventive measures and report any potential hazards that have occurred or that might occur in future, so that can be tackled well. Then what should be done? What should be the way forward? First, there is need for strengthening the enforcement. The independent safety audits can happen. As of now, safety audits are done by the government agencies, and there are a lot of corruptions involved. There many a times the company is not following the fire safety norms properly, or the ventilation system, or the various safety measures that they needs to follow. They are not following that, and still on the paper, on the audits, that is shown that they are following that. So there is need for strict enforcement of all the rules and laws that are in place, and that can actually help in preventing these kind of industrial disasters in future. Also, there is need for promoting best practices and technologies. For example, environmentally safe technologies, which has been recommended by UNEP. They need investment. Investment should done in them itself. For example, any particular industry which is releasing smokes in air, they should resort to that particular technologies which can absorb most of the pollutants in the funnel itself, and then whatever the smoke they are releasing in the air or environment, that is non-polluting. There are less or negligible amount of pollutants available in that. So until and unless companies will invest in this environmentally safe technologies, it will be very difficult to tackle the industrial disasters. Also, there is need for enhanced community engagement. That communities, civil societies, organizations, NGOs are the watchdogs. They need to see all the industrial activities which are happening, and if there is something which is happening, that if hazardous waste are being released in the environment without proper treatment, then with the help of community engagement, we can flag these issues to the required forum properly. Also, there is need for investing in the worker training, so that in case of any disaster, they can respond properly. Also, there is need for providing incentives and support for upgrading the safety measures. The government can provide some tax offs, or some capacity building measures can be taken from the governments. They can provide some the hand holding and support to these industries, with the help of which they can invest in the safety, and they can invest in the worker training. They can also invest in the movement towards the environmentally safe technologies with the help of government. A mains practice question from this particular topic is this, that you people can write. In our simplified section, first topic is essential religious practices. This particular topic relates with GS paper 2 fundamental rights, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 16. So the Bombay High Court said that no one can claim their right to practice religion has been violated when permission to use loudspeaker is denied, and this was said by Bombay High Court on Thursday. And the court said that use of loudspeaker and public address systems cannot be deemed an essential religious practices that ought to be protected, law said. What are essential religious practices? Let's suppose there is a particular religion, okay, and now there is some practice, okay, or let's suppose folding of hands, or chanting of the mantras, or any of the religious practices which is so much of integral to this particular religion that if this practice will be removed, this religion might lose its special characteristics, or this religion might lose its significance. These are those kind of practices which are very much integral to that religion itself. And that is what was the petition which was being heard by the High Court? The High Court was hearing a writ petition filed by 2 residents, and these petitions were against the use of loudspeaker by mosques and the madrasas beyond the permissible decibel limits and during the prohibited hours. Under the Noise Pollution Regulation and Control Rules 2000, noise level in residential areas during the day must not exceed 55 decibels and at night 45 decibels. So if there is any community or any religion which is using the public address system or loudspeaker which is beyond the 45 decibel at night, so in a way that is violating the noise pollution rules also. But if someone will say this use of public address system or loudspeaker is integral to my religion, then and that is the thing that was heard by the High Court. They said, that beyond the hours or beyond the permissible decibel limits, if someone is using the loudspeaker and if someone is using public administration, that public address system, that is not permitted. And this particular practice of using loudspeaker is not essential. Without the use of the particular loudspeakers, still the religious practices can be done without any interference or without any effect. Now also particular High Court observed, and it gave various rulings or observations. It said that the state should have an inbuilt mechanism to control the decibel levels in loudspeakers and other sound emitting gadgets used at any religious place. On one way do this would be to carry out calibration or auto fixations of the decibel limits in these speakers. The court said that there can be a program or software that can be used that beyond this time, for example beyond 8 p.m, if there is a use of public address system, the particular loudspeaker will be the sound will be below the 45 decibel limit. There can be software or sound application, or there can be technology that can be used to do this. The Mumbai Police Commissioner should ensure that police officers use a decibel level measuring mobile application to check for the violations, because mobile are the easiest means with the help of which the violations can be checked. And if there is a public address system or loudspeaker which is violating this norm, they can be asked to follow the norms which are required. Also, High Court laid down a 4-step graded penalty system for the police to initiate, while the first time offenders could be let off after a caution, and similarly subsequent for subsequent offenses other punishments are there. So what is this essential practices doctrine? And it mainly existed to a speech which was made by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly, and Dr. Ambedkar was striving to distinguish the religious from the secular, that by arguing that states should be allowed to intervene in matters that are connected to religion but are not intrinsically religions. Means obviously the state should not interfere in religious matter, but if there is a matter which is not completely religious, in that particular matter the state can intervene to ensure that secularism of India is intact. In Sirur Mutt case 1954, the Supreme Court held in that the term religion will cover all ritual and practices which are integral to religion. The rituals, for example, in Hinduism, the chanting of the mantras is such ritual. And there will be a essential practices test which will be done, and which will determine what is integral to any one particular religion, and what will be integral, that will be termed as essential religious practices. And what constitutes the essential part of the religion is to be determined with reference to the doctrine of that religion itself, that whether there is written in that religion any of the scriptures says in that particular religion that this particular practice should be done, that this is part of integral. So the court will see that there is some writing or there is some scripture of that religion which is advocating for that practice. If the particular scripture or religion is advocating, then the courts may term that particular practice as the essential practice. For example, in various of the Hindu scriptures, it is written that chanting of the mantras is one of the important part of the rituals. In 2004, Supreme Court said that the Anand Marg sect have no fundamental right to perform the Tandav dance in public street, because that is not an essential religious practice of that particular sect. Our next topic is Fiscal Health Index. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, Health, Government Policies and Intervention, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 12. So the context is that the NITI Aayog has reported this Fiscal Health Index for the financial year 23 to gauge the level of the fiscal discipline that are being followed by the various states, that whether they are following the targets of the fiscal deficit, whether they are following the targets of debt to GDP ratio and everything or not, and what are the improvements they are doing on improving their revenue sources, whether they are resorting for strong revenue mobilization, effective expenditure management, and whether they are resorting to prudent fiscal practices or not. And under this particular index, it is the mineral rich Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Goa and the Jharkhand. They have emerged as top performing achievers among the states listed in NITI Aayog first fiscal health index, which has been reported on the Friday. And this was the report titled Fiscal Health Index 2025, is ranked states for 2023, covering 18 major states that drive the Indian economy in terms of their contribution to India's GDP, demography, total public expenditure, revenues and overall fiscal the stability. 18 major states in terms of their contribution in India's economy, demography, population, etc. They have been checked under this index, and according to report, the Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal and Kerala were the worst performing states in the fiscal health index, each facing significant fiscal challenges and listed under the aspirational category. And referring to top 5 achiever states, NITI Aayog said that states have high capital outlay of up to 4% of gross state domestic product. Effective mobilization of non-tax revenue are some of the important areas which has been focused by some of the achiever states. You can see these are the achiever states and these are the performer states. These are the front runner states: Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, okay, Karnataka. And then there are the aspirational districts which are lower in this particular index, which are not following the fiscal discipline, who are not following the prudent fiscal practices. There are various other reports and the indexes which are released by the NITI Aayog, for example SDG India Index, which tracks the progress that each state made on the achievement of the various sustainable development goals that India needs to achieve by 2030, and this was topped by Kerala in the recent released report. It tracks the progress in states of UTs to achieve the sustainable development goals. Then we have the export preparedness index. In the last release report, it is the Tamil Nadu which topped, and it ranks the states and UTs based on their exports performance and what is their potential. Then we have the composite water index, which assesses the water security of states and the union territories. Then Atal innovation ranking, which rank states and UTs for their innovation ecosystem. What is the amount of the ecosystem for the creation of the proper innovation system? What is the amount which has been kept aside by the particular states? And the curriculum changes following of national education policy. There are various parameters that can be looked under this. The state energy efficiency index, it ranks the states and the UTs based on their energy efficiency performance, and it under this Karnataka was the topper under the last release report. Then we have the multidimensional poverty index, which measures the poverty across multiple dimensions including health, education and living standards. Then we have the India Innovation Index, which ranks states and UTs based on their innovation performance, how much IPRs are being registered from that particular states. Then District Human Development Index, which measures the human developed at district level, the skill improvements, etc. Next topic is spinal muscular atrophy. This particular topic relates with GS paper 2 health, government policies and interventions, and this can be also related with the biotechnology part of your GS paper 3, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 12. So the context is that health activists and the patients with spinal muscular atrophy have refuted the union government's affidavit in Kerala High Court and demanded the urgent actions to reduce the cost of medicines required for this genetic disorders. In the affidavit, government acknowledges the staggering cost of SMA therapies ranging from 50 lakh to 8 crore per patient annually, with the gene therapies costing between 9 crore and 30 crore per patient. And this results in unbudgeted national expenditure of 6,400 crore to 34,000 crore each year. So you would have obviously seen in various cases, various ads that appear in various websites like Impact Guru, okay, like other other websites which are crowdfunding for various injections which are used in the spinal muscular atrophy, and one injection can cost 14 crore to 16 crores. So spinal muscular atrophy is a rare genetic disease that attacks the baby's nerves and muscles, and as it progresses makes it extremely difficult for the child to carry out basic activities like sit up, lift their head, or even the breathing becomes very much difficult. What happens? This is brain and this is the neuron, and which sends signal to various parts of the body. That neurons, let's suppose you are plucking any rose, okay. Now let's suppose there was a thorn which pierced in your finger. You might feel the pain after a half second or slight delay, because when the thorn got pierced in your fingers, it is the neuron with the help of which the message was sent, and now you felt the pain, and now you took back your hand from that thorn because it was causing pain in your fingers. So it is the SMN or the survival motor neuron protein which keeps neuron working correctly. With the help of this protein, it is the neuron which are moving from brain to other parts of the body. And with the help of this SMN protein, it helps in signal reaching the muscles. But what happened with the SMN1 gene mutation or missing gene, it leads to insufficient SMN proteins and the neurons become dysfunctions and signal does not reach muscles. So the muscle become atrophied, and slowly and gradually these muscles become weak and become dysfunctional. Here you can see that there was lot of SMN protein. These green color areas are the SMN protein, and here we have various very insufficient SMN protein. And when SMN protein is not there, the message will not reach to the muscles properly and muscle will become atrophied, that will become weak or dysfunctional, and slowly and gradually the people will find it, or especially the kids will find it very difficult to do even the basic daily activities. And the signals from brain to neuron then reach to the muscles with the help of this SMN protein. But when they become insufficient or the dysfunctional, it is not reaching to the muscles properly and leading to various causes. Mainly the small children are the patients of this spinal muscular atrophy, but it can happen to adolescents also. And there are various stages under the spinal muscular atrophy, and one of the main issue with this is that the cost of treatment is very high, and that is the reasons that activists and the patients were calling that union government should take up the complete cost of the treatment of this genetic disorder. Next is the Pralay, India's first quasi-ballistic missile. This has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 10, and this is related with your GS paper 3 defense technology. The DRDO is set to showcase Pralay, an indigenous short-range quasi-ballistic missile, at the Republic Day parade in New Delhi on Sunday, and it is meant for Army and the Air Force. And Pralay is the first ballistic missile in India's arsenal for the conventional strikes. What is the difference between the ballistic missile and cruise missile, that we'll see. And in this Republic Day parade itself, the Army's battle surveillance system Sanjay will also be the part of the parade. What is Sanjay? It is the Army's surveillance system, and the name you can say is have taken inspiration from the epic Mahabharata. In the epic Mahabharata, the king Dhritarashtra was blind and he could not see what is happening in the battleground. So it was Sanjay who without even going to the battlefield could see what is happening in the battlefield, and he was telling all the things to the king Dhritarashtra. So similarly, this will be a surveillance system which can give us an idea what is happening in the battlefields without even having a proper physical presence. And with the range of 400 kilometers, Pralay adds the BrahMos Prahar missiles already in the inventory, giving the India military an option for standoff missile strikes across the border, and it is meant for deployment along both the line of control between India and Pakistan and line of actual control between India and China. So the cruise missile have a low altitude and they are self-guided and follows a relatively straight path. This is the path of the cruise missile. Whereas the ballistic missile, they generally covers a high altitude and they have a arced shaped or the projectile territory they follow, and after initial propulsion they go for this projectile territory. The jet engines or turbo engines are used for the sustained flight in the cruise missiles, whereas rocket engines for the initial boost, and then the ballistic missiles mainly relies on the momentum and the gravity of the earth. And cruise missiles generally have a subsonic to supersonic speeds, whereas it is the ballistic missile which have a speed of hypersonic speeds due to its re-entry phase. The hypersonic speeds are the speeds which have a Mach of more than 5.0. To find out the Mach number, we can divide the object of speed by the speed of sound, and that is with the help of which we can say that whether it is hypersonic, supersonic, transonic or the subsonic. And the cruise missiles are easier to detect due to low altitude flight and the radar signatures. Ballistic missiles are more difficult to detect during mid-course phase during the high altitudes, and generally it goes outside the atmospheres. And cruise missiles are highly maneuverable and can change course mid-flight, whereas the ballistic missiles have a limited maneuverability after initial launch. Then the cruise missiles are typically short range, hundreds of kilometers, and ballistic missiles can have very long ranges, thousands of kilometers. Okay. Then our last topic is the tax deducted at source. What is TDS? This is related with GS paper 3, taxation mobilization of resources, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 10. The Supreme Court on Friday refused to entertain a petition to scrap the TDS framework under the Income Tax Act, saying the system was prevalent in many countries, and this was done by a bench headed by Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna, after a petition by Ashwini Upadhyay. He said that please approach the Delhi High Court, and petitions sought that scrap the TDS system, calling it arbitrary, irrational and violative of various fundamental rights. And the petitioner challenged the TDS framework under the Income Tax Act, which mandates the deduction of taxes at the time of payments of the payer, and it deposits with the Income Tax Department, and the deducted amount is adjusted against the payer's tax liability. What happened? Let's suppose there is a person A who won 10 lakh rupees in KBC. Okay, now 30% TDS will be deducted, and after that the 7 lakh rupees will be given to the winner of this KBC. Similarly, the persons who are winning in Dream 11 or any of the fantasy apps, there is a TDS which is deducted initially at the first phase itself, and then money is given to the ultimate person who won that amount. So the TDS is deducted by the payer at the time of making payments to the receiver. It will be deducted by the owners of the KBC, or it will be deducted by the Dream 11 or the My 11 circle itself, and it is collected directly from the source of income, from where the income is being generated. Similarly, people who are in some of the professions or the freelance working, etc., there is also a TDS which is deducted by the particular company who is taking services of these freelance workers. Also, it is applicable for individuals and the businesses. It is deducted by the buyer or payer. It is deducted on rent, commissions, wins, etc. Whereas TCS is tax collected by the seller from the buyer on any of the sale. It is mainly to control the tax evasion on specific goods. For example, there is TCS which is applicable on the motor vehicle. So at this point of time, if you go to buy any of the cars or SUV, etc., there will be a TCS which will be levied, and that will be collected by the seller. That will be collected by the dealer of that particular company before giving keys to you. Okay, so it will be collected before selling. Why it is done? It is done to ensure that that person who is spending that much, that pay at least some amount as the tax. Tomorrow, if that complete liability is with the person who is buying the car itself, so let's suppose he may deny that he will, or he may not pay any tax on buying of that car, because he may have used black money, or he may have used the cash money for buying of that car. That is the reason the tax is levied in the initial stage before selling itself, so that government can at least get some amount on that purchase which is being made by the persons. It is collected by the seller or the payee, and it is levied on the selling of forest produce, motor vehicles, tendu leaves, minerals, liquors, scraps, licenses of toll plazas, etc. This was all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.